Well, g'day and welcome back to the shed. This is part 3 of this STC model 530, and at the end of part 2 I had it working quite well actually. It's a good little performer, AM and shortwave, and it brings in shortwave quite well. But there's a few little things to do to the chassis, and I'll show you those in a minute. The other thing I need to deal with is the speaker. It's still scraping a little bit. It's okay at moderate volumes, but you turn it up and not so great. And another thing is that the owner has requested a Bluetooth board be used on it, and that's going to present a couple of minor difficulties which I'll take you through at the time. But first let's have a look at the chassis. So although it cleaned up well enough, it really didn't come up all that well. There's a lot of corrosion and messy bits on the front, and so I think I will paint it. And so I found this paint at the local hardware store, and it's a pretty damn good match for the chassis. So I am going to spray it at some point. I'm not going to get onto that straight away. There's a few other things to do. Painting it will involve removing this tuning cap again, and the whole assembly comes off pretty easily now that I've got those standoffs screwed in from underneath, so that won't be too difficult. But I might also have a go at straightening this tuning shaft, because that hurts every time I look at it. The whole mechanism moves around because the shaft inside is bent. I'll see how brave I am with that one. Now, the other thing I found with this chassis, with this first IF tube, and it is a 6K7 GT in this case, the owner gave me this 6K7 G tube. It's new old stock, and I plugged that in and there was a noticeable increase in gain. But when I plugged it in again later on, after I'd done the recap, the thing oscillated, and I presume it needs a shield on it in order to operate. Now this one operates okay without a shield. It doesn't spill over into oscillation, and I don't know, but I'm just guessing that that may be because it has a bit less gain than the new tube, which is in the first place the reason I wanted to change it. But if I'm going to use that replacement valve, I'm going to need a goat can to put on it. Now this valve did have a homemade shield on it. This copper or brass tube was soldered up and was jammed quite tightly over the base. I took it off just to have a look at the tube. And it doesn't seem to be necessary, although it may have been when the valve was new. I could put that back on, I suppose, in the meantime, but I will see if I can get my hands on a goat can and use the other one. The other thing is that the goat can on this valve here, this is the mixer oscillator, isn't grounded. It doesn't have a connection to one of the pins on the valve. It's just sitting there floating, so it won't be doing much good at all. So I might have to attach something from it to ground somewhere convenient. I'll probably just attach a wire to it, to the tuning cap or something like that. That said, the radio is working very well as it is, and the temptation is to leave it well alone before I mess anything else up. One thing I do have to deal with is the speaker, so let's have a look at that. Now this speaker, as I said, isn't too bad at moderate volumes. It doesn't scrape, well, it does scrape a bit there. You can hear that there is still some scraping or something in there that's catching. And looking at the side of the voice coil, which is somewhat alarmingly exposed because of the lack of any protection around it, you can see a couple of spots there where the voice coil has rub marks on it. And that tells me that there's something sharp or whatever in there that is scraping on it. Now, looking at the construction of this speaker, the cone is held in by these rivets around the edge, and it's retained by this metal ring which sits on top of the cone and is riveted onto the basket. And I pulled up one of these. Yeah, there's the other side of that rivet. I was thinking if I undid them, I could take the cone out and have a good go at cleaning out the gap in the magnet. But if this cone is stuck to the basket around here and I do that, I could end up damaging it, irreparably. So I'm a little bit reluctant to do that. Thinking about it, my next option is that if I unscrewed this metal spider from the centre, I might be able to lift the cone all the way out of the magnet and perhaps clean out the magnet with the cone in place, but lift it out and possibly turn to one side slightly. I think the suspension here would allow enough flexibility to do that. So then I could possibly get in either from the inside as well, but around the outside, and clean out around it that way. And there is a third option, and that involves removing the field coil and the magnet from the back of the speaker. And that's pretty straightforward. You undo 4 bolts. The fun would be lining it up again once I wanted to put it back together. I think I'll take the easiest path first. I'll start by removing this screw from the spider, see if I can lift the voice coil out of the magnet and see if I can clean around it that way. If not, we're going to have to get a bit more serious. I'll just try undoing this screw for a start. Yes, it does, which is good. It's better than slipping and sticking your screwdriver through the cone. And that nut is not threaded, it's just used as a spacer. In fact, it doesn't have any thread. Right, so let's see how far I can pull that voice coil up. I was hoping for more movement than that. It's really not going to lift out. Okay, so do I go for removing the magnet and trying to line it up again later, or removing the cone? So looking at these speaker connections, we have, I guess, the secondary coming out of the speaker transformer onto these 2 terminals which go to the voice coil, and these 2 wires behind here would be the humbucker coil. Now, as far as I can see, there is no connection to this humbucker coil, so it looks like it's not connected at all. It goes straight from the output transformer to the voice coil, and this is normally in series with the voice coil and inducing reverse hum, I suppose, into it. This wire hasn't been very well soldered on either. Now, do I try to reverse that? I guess I could do that. I'll need to remove these connections anyway if I'm going to attempt to remove either the magnet or the coil. Well, here goes. We'll start on this one, I guess. I'm just not wanting to melt the solder. Just add a little bit. There we go. That's that one. This one looks a little bit better soldered. There we go. Okay, now we still have the voice coil braids attached to the back of these. I might just leave them there for now until I work out what I'm doing. If the cone is staying put and I take the magnet off, I won't have to desolder them anyway. Which is the way I'm thinking. If I pull the cone out, I'm still going to have to align it with shims down the magnet. So I guess it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. I'll try taking the magnet out and see where we go from there, I guess. I've loosened the output transformer, but I don't want this thing hanging by its wires, so I'm having a great deal of trouble finding anything to fit on those nuts on the inside that will actually fit through the holes in the speaker basket. But I've had some luck. I've been able to loosen these 2 from the outside. I'll see how I go with this one. Yes. It's also loosening from the outside, so I should be able to then hold that nut with just a pair of pliers and unscrew it. And this one is proving a little bit more difficult. It is turning. Oh, that's come a bit looser now. Yep, so I should be able to get these off now. Of course, while I'm doing this, I'm thinking about how I'm going to get the damn things back together. But let's face it, the speaker is not really going to cut it as it is. It needs to be done. Okay, so now I'll undo the output transformer, and these don't have a captive nut on the inside, they're just threaded through the basket, so that makes it relatively easy. Something smaller to get in there. Okay. Oh, the wire's caught up. There we go. And there's the humbucker coil just sitting there like that. Now, here we are. Gee, that has got a lot of scraping on it, hasn't it? It's lucky that it's still intact. Let's have a look at the inside of the... Yeah, so there's the pole piece. Gee, those wires are not great either, but they're okay. Alright, so I'll clean them off and try and put it back. You can see some dark marks here which may have been corrosion, and there are some like scratch marks, I guess, from machining. None of them look to be of any great concern, but I've cleaned it out with very fine emery paper, and I don't want to go any further than that because I don't want to enlarge the gap any more than it should be. I've also cleaned off the voice coil with a cotton bud moistened with WD-40 just to take out any dust. It did seem to have some dust embedded in it and corrosion. You can see a little bit of dullness around there where it's been scraping, but there were some quite big scrape marks on it. I'm hoping that it's not damaged. You could perhaps see some marks on it there, just where it's been scraping. So lining this up so it doesn't scrape is going to be a job. That scrapes. That scrapes. That scrapes. That does not scrape. Alright, so I'll try and line this up, and then what I'll have to do is not move it while I put the magnet over it and try and line it up with the inner side of the voice coil. Gee, this is not going to be much fun. I've decided, perhaps rather optimistically, to give this basket a coat of paint while I've got it apart, and I've rubbed off the rust off this side, and I'm just putting some rust buster on it. I'll let that dry and then give it a coat of paint. I'll probably neutralise it with something first, like white vinegar or something. This incidentally is the same stuff that I used to clean the chassis up with, so I know that it won't affect the paint on the speaker, assuming it's the same paint, and I presume it is. If it is paint, I was speculating as to whether it was copper plating, but I'm not sure now. Perhaps not. And I'll let that dry, which will give me a few minutes to consider how I'm going to get this mess back together. Well, I've sprayed the basket, and while that's drying, I've been thinking about how I'm going to put this back together, and basically not only do I have to centre that on the voice coil, but I have to centre this piece on the magnet, and that's going to be probably the most difficult part. I've measured the inside diameter of this, which comes out at 20, I think I put 27.4, 27.5 almost. I'll call 27.5 millimeters, and the outside diameter of the pole piece is 25.35, say 25.4. So that's a difference of 2.15, half of that 1.05. So I need, if I put shims around there which are 1.05 thick, I should be able to get it centered pretty well. And then if I can hold it in that position, then I can fit the basket to the back of it and center the voice coil somehow. Now, looking for shims, and I have this piece of phenolic material, and that comes out at, I think, 1.05, which is pretty damn close to what I want. So I might just cut some pieces of this to fit around the edge there, and then try and fit the other piece onto it. This is marked back that way, so the coil, the humbucker coil, goes on like that, and it does actually fit in there neatly. Once it presses down, that will just fit nicely. Okay, now the fun begins. So this goes on this way, and there is some residual magnetism in it that I can feel. It's pulling it around a little bit. I'll try and get that visually centered as much as I can. The holes don't perfectly line up. Perhaps they didn't originally, I don't know. That looks right. I'm going to put in my shims. I'm going to put 3 of them in. One there, one there, and they are just a light push fit, so that's good. And one there, which is alright. That is about as good as I can get it. Just want to make sure those bolts will fit through the holes okay. Yep. Now, I wish there was a way of holding this in place. I wonder if I put a couple of clips on it, if they would foul the basket. Perhaps not. That might do. Okay. I don't suppose I'll ever find that again. Okay, so I've got that in place as well as I can. Clamped it. I put a little dab of glue on the edges of here to hopefully help hold it in place. I don't suppose it'll make much difference, but every little bit helps. So now I'm going to take these out. Well, I'll take the clamps off first. I don't suppose I can leave those clamps on while I put the speaker basket on. I'll try that one maybe, because it's pretty flat on top. This one probably not. I wish I had another clamp, another flat clamp like that. I'll see what I've got actually. This rusty old thing might just do the job. It's quite flat on top. Alright, so removing the shims. And I will try to lower the cone onto it. Now, if I can position this so it doesn't scrape, I'll then put shims down on the inside of it, but I would like to have it so that it sits there naturally without having to pull it around with the centrepiece. That might be a big ask. And I have to rotate the cone a little, the basket a little bit anyway. There we go. So that the bolt holes will line up. Yep, okay, so that's just about not scraping there. Okay, I'll put some pieces of paper down the edge of that. I can fit 3 in around that centrepiece. Being paper, I can bend them to the slight curve required to fit neatly around the edge. One down there. And now I will, for my next trick, try and put these bolts and screws through from the magnet to the basket, and that's going to be a little bit difficult, I think. Okay, I've got one of the bolts in and I've taped it from the back. Okay, so now I've got that started. Don't bump it. I'll take the tape off and hold the nut with this little sideways screwdriver. Yeah, it's proving rather difficult. I'll try and get another one in, and then I'll see if I can find a way of doing them up. I'll try and tighten it up a little bit more. Right. So I've got them firmly done up. Well, not tight, but as tight as I can easily do it that way. So I'm now going to take a risk and turn it over and see if I can attach the output transformer. And probably the easiest way to do it is like this, without that cord getting in the way. Oh, I've just torn the cone. Stupid bloody plug. Okay. I guess it's repairable. We'll just have to see what I can do. Meanwhile, I need to get this into place because it's flopping around all over the place and I can't really work with it easily like that. It's just going to pull at the wires and pull them off, and then we'll be in even more trouble. Alright, just turn it over and I'll just see how much damage I've done. Oh dear. Yeah, I put a big Y-shaped tear in it there. I guess that a tea bag and some liquid electrical tape will take care of it, but gee, it's a pity. I might just reinforce this tear too. I noticed that it was flexing a little bit along that line. This one's not too bad. Okay, let's see what we can do. I'll just push that into the glue there. I'll just smooth that over as much as I can. Don't want it too thick, but I do want it to stick. Okay, so they're all tightened up. The speaker cones turned out, well, okay. Not pretty, but it'll work. So let's just take these shims out and see if we're somewhere like in the centre. Now that's not scraping where it is now. So if I can put this screw in where it is. Well, there we go. Happy with that. Less happy with this mess, but oh look, you know, I guess I stuffed it up. But it'll work okay. You're not going to see this side of it, so I guess it'll be alright.
Airbnb. His dream of making a comeback at the Paris Games later this year.
Yeah, well, it doesn't sound too bad. I'll try turning it up loud later and see if it rattles, but I think we've probably got on top of it now. Well, I've pulled off the tuning capacitor again, and I'm masking it up. I'm going to spray the chassis. This chassis has more holes in it than I've ever seen. I've used up half my supply of, well, nearly all of my supply of fridge magnets. But I'll just finish masking it off. I'll take off this side. Of course, I'm going to keep this back panel here with the stickers on it and whatever. I'll just run tape along there and just try and blend it in along the top. I've done that before and it worked reasonably well. Just trying out a new idea for masking up wiring. It's always such a nuisance to get off. So what I'm doing is, this is the sticky side of the masking tape, and I'm sticking a piece of masking tape face to face with it on the inside. And then just stick that over there. Fold it over. I can push that into the end there. Okay, well I think we're all ready to go. I think I've covered everything. So just take it outside, give it a spray, and show it to you when I come back. Well, it's probably dry enough to start taking off the masking, so this first. There we go, take the cord out of the plastic bag.
To bring more Conservative influence into Premier Jeremy Rockliff's more moderate Liberal Party.
Well, there we go. It's working at least. I haven't broken anything, so that's a good start. Well, it's about time I started on these Bluetooth boards, and I bought 10 of these ages ago, and intending to put them in one radio or another, and I just never got around to it. They've been sitting there for ages. I bought enough caps and resistors and other components to make up 4 boards currently. I only need 1 at the moment, but I'll do a couple, I suppose, because I do have a couple of radios I'd like to put them in. Anyway, it's a little bit out of my recent experience building circuit boards. I've mainly been dealing with old radios. Of course, I used to work on circuit boards all the time when I was working on video games and such. Gee, that was back in the 70s when it was all TTL logic and Z80 processors and 8080 processors. None of these bloody surface mount things that you get now. Anyway, I won't make you watch all of this. It will go on for a long time and it'll be tedious. So that's the board completed. I hope I've done everything right. I used these little tantalum capacitors for the 1 UFs. I know Manuel used some, I think polyester film or something like that. They were much bigger, and I couldn't see how they'd fit on the board, the ones that were available locally, so I've just used them. Hopefully they'll be okay. Now the only remaining thing is, I put these standoffs there, is to fit the actual Bluetooth board to this board. There'll be a bit of mucking around getting them in, but that's one, then the next longest, and the next longest. Go on, go in, you know you want to. This is your forever home, you want to go there. Alright, so now if I can solder this without overheating any of those minute components on there. I've turned my iron down to my usual temperature of 400. I've got it down to 350. I hope that's enough. I mean, I hope that's not too much for it. Hopefully that'll be alright. I'll have a look under the magnifying glass, see if it looks okay. Yes, I think that's alright. Well, it's all finished, and to try it out I'm going to hook it up to the Bush VHF 64 that I finished not long ago. Just because it's easy, it's got a switched phono input and an easily accessible 6.3 volt heater supply. I've run a jumper lead out to the one of the dial lamps for the 6.3 volt supply, and I'll hook that up once the radio's turned on. The audio leads are a bit more difficult because I don't have a plug to fit these jacks, so I've just put little bent wires on the end of there. Hopefully that will be okay. Let's turn it on, see what happens. I'll put this up on top of the radio. So I'll turn it on, put it on medium wave, I guess, that one, and wait for it to warm up.
And if ships stop operating, then, you know, everything's going to rise. And
turn it up to
what we've seen in the last 50, 60 years is that because the scale of shipping has grown so massively, is that ports had to move away from, you know, the city centres where they were historically based.
Putting it on gram, and now I'll just hook it up to the 6 volt supply. Alright, so I've got some horrible royalty free music on here somewhere. Okay, this probably is truly horrible, but it's working. So I'll just pause that for a minute, turn it. The volume at maximum, I've got a slight buzz in there, but it could just be my crappy connections. That is really loud at that point. I'm not going to play it that loud. Well, at least we know the Bluetooth board works, and I was thinking of mounting it on the front here, possibly the other way around with a little aerial bit facing outwards, so it'll only have the wooden cabinet between it and the wide world, and that I can use these 2 holes that the original electrolytics were mounted in for the cabling, and that'll keep the 6.3 volt nice and short as well, which is good. But we're not out of the woods yet. This Bluetooth board requires a 6.3 volt AC input to the bridge rectifier here, and that's not a problem. It also takes the active 6.3 volt line, the one that's not attached to chassis ground, and takes it down to this voltage doubler, which supplies plus and minus 9 volts to the op amp. Now the problem with that is that on this radio the 6.3 volts is not referenced directly to ground. Here's a 6.3 volt winding here, and you can see there that the winding has a resistor across it, which I think is 100 ohms, centre tap to ground. So each side of the 6.3 volts is 3.15 volts off ground. And here it is here on the back of the transformer. These are the 6.3 volt AC heater windings, and these go off to the heaters, and here directly strapped to it, you can't see it but these are connected directly, is this 100 ohm, I believe, wire wound resistor with a centre tap reference to ground here. Now if it's only seeing 3.15 volts, instead of being plus and minus 9 volts here, we'd get plus and minus 4.5. So whether that will be enough, that's a total of 18 volts, so you get a total of 9 volts between them. I don't know if that will be enough to operate the op amps or not. It might be, we might get reduced output, it might not work at all. Now, one option I have is to remove this resistor to ground here, just take it out altogether and reference one side of this to ground. And I don't think it would make any difference to the operation of the radio. The heaters wouldn't care whether one side of them's referenced to ground or not. They're not connected to anything else. But there must have been a reason they did it this way. I guess that reason might be hum reduction or something. First of all, I might just try it as is and see if it generates enough voltage to run those op amps. Okay, so I've tacked the output of the Bluetooth board just to the audio input, the pickup input here. And what I'm going to do is clip these wires onto the 6.3 volts once it's turned on and see what happens. So plugging it in and turning it on for a start. So the radio's working,
who they believe can assist with an ongoing investigation.
but the sound is terribly distorted. It sounds awful. I don't know if that's because I've hooked the Bluetooth module up to the input or if there's something else going on with it.
Frequent the Balga, Hammersley and Baldura areas. If you see him.
Now that is on the less sensitive AM setting, medium wave. If I put it onto the more sensitive one,
man has been charged with the assault of a teenage girl in Perth's southern suburbs on Friday.
it sounds even more distorted. I'm not sure what's going on here.
Toilet block and sexually assaulted her.
In any case, the other thing is, of course, this doesn't have a switched pickup input. I presume you just turned it off a station or disconnected the aerial. I don't know, but I'm going to have to find a way of switching the audio from the Bluetooth to the radio. So that's another little hurdle to jump through, but I'll work something out. Anyway, so I guess I'll turn that up. Put it off a station and I'll disconnect the aerial. Okay, so that's quietened it down a bit. Now, the moment of truth, I'm going to attach the Bluetooth board to the 6.3 volts. Here we go. Let's hope sparks don't jump out. Okay, we have the little LED on there. And it made a noise, which means the op amp's working. Okay, so now I have on here a podcast, and I'll just have to turn Bluetooth on. Bluetooth, and there we are, it's connected automatically. I guess because it connected before. Okay, so back to podcasts. And we have, I think, the
Hello, welcome to Science with Dr. Carl for 2024. If you are just joining us, hello, my name is Lucy Smith. I wrangle science questions from Triple J listeners around the nation and put them to the smartest man I know and national living treasure, Dr. Carl. This week in particular, we got into questions about antibiotic resistance. We chatted about the struggle of putting on wet swimmers and whether...
Well, that sounds pretty good. It sounds a lot better than the broadcast audio. I really don't know what's going on there. But perhaps the Bluetooth board is pulling down the audio or interfering with it in some way. So I'm going to have to find a way of switching that. Okay, I'll put it back on radio there, and the distortion's still
None of that is real.
there.
And what is real is
I'm going to try cutting the input to the Bluetooth board.
I've got my hand resting on. you know, like that's what I can trust.
This realization would come much later, though.
Okay, that made a huge difference. So obviously the Bluetooth input is dragging down the radio audio, so I can't leave it connected all the time. I am going to have to find a way of switching it, and there are no spare contacts left on this switch. There is the wire which changes the light globes on the front, and I could potentially use that. What I was thinking of doing is using the less sensitive position on medium wave as a Bluetooth position, so I would have to simply just use the one that switches the light globes, that contact set, and take one contact off there, so that when you get to the third position, it will, both globes will go out and it will turn on the Bluetooth board. That's pretty simple. That will supply power to it in the third position only, and I really don't think that third position on medium wave will ever be used. There's the one that works well and the one that doesn't. I don't think we would have any station so strong that they would swamp the receiver, at least not these days. So I think that position really is redundant, and if I use that for Bluetooth, I think that's possibly the best solution. However, I obviously now have to switch the input as well, because the Bluetooth board pulls down the audio coming out of the radio section. And I was thinking, what am I going to do about that? So rummaging through my parts bin, I've come up with a little rotary switch here, and this switch has a flat shaft running through it. So I'll show you what I've come up with. Luckily this chassis already has a lot of holes in it, and there was one conveniently placed for this, and this just sits on the back of that shaft, and as I turn the knob, it works perfectly. So I'll use that to switch the Bluetooth audio in and out, as well as the power, I think. So I've mounted the Bluetooth board on the front here, in front of the transformer, and I've done it in a way that it will be relatively easy to revert to original. It's not just a matter of taking it straight out and unclipping a wire, unfortunately, because I've had to switch the Bluetooth input to the audio stage, and so now the knob goes Bluetooth, medium wave, short wave, and it all seems to work all right. I'll show you what I've done. First of all, in here, and I don't think you can see that very well, but I've cut the link between the two dial light connections, and this little red wire here attached to this terminal is the 6.3 volt to the Bluetooth board. It just runs down to here and through the chassis and out. And now this blue wire onto this coil here, this is effectively the input to the audio stage. It runs through this choke onto here via a cap onto the wiper of the volume pot, which is just up here. So I've taken the lead off here. Both wires, or two red wires, came from the two boards, and run that to this switch. This is the switch that I showed you that I've hooked up to the main switch. That goes to the central wiper of that one. These two are the two radio stages, shortwave and medium wave. So on both shortwave and medium wave positions, this is connected to the blue wire and into the audio as normal, so the radio works. On the third position, this wire here goes off to the Bluetooth board, and I've grounded it over here near the audio ground. I don't think it matters where you grounded it, but it was convenient anyway. Over here at the transformer, we've got the 6.3 volt, and I've grounded the Bluetooth board to one side of that. This other side is the side that runs to the switch. So we'll see how it goes. I know it works, but I'm not sure how the audio levels will work out, and I haven't tried it since I've hooked up all these switches and things either, so it should work if I haven't done anything silly. Okay, well, let's turn it on, see what happens. I've got it on, I think, yeah, medium wave at the moment, so I'll just let it warm up. That's tone, sorry. Turn it up here.
He thinks that the Netherlands is a cycling mecca. In the 1970s, it was moving to a car culture until the population made an active decision.
And we should have shortwave here, and I'll just see what we get. I should get something. It's evening. There's a fair bit, around 30 metres here.
Much more money. And even more debt. Even much more debt. And also by equally simplifying debt, the central government should take over.
Okay, so shortwave's working. Now, the moment. I'll put it on the station again.
We're going to invest a lot in building roads and building train lines, particularly metro. But
just to the volume reference. Okay, now Bluetooth. I had a small noise there. I'll get my iPad out, and we should have a podcast going here, so I'll hit that.
BBC Listen.
Yep.
Podcasts, radio, news, music, and more.
Now that's working.
I'm Jonathan Webb, and this is another summer bonus in your Science Show podcast feed.
Now,
today I'm looking back on a busy year in science news with two top brains from my team in the RN Science Unit.
Oslo, there are cities all around the world where they're saying, look...
Yeah, the radio is a good deal louder still. I can't switch quickly backwards and forwards because every time I put it onto Bluetooth I have to reconnect. And replay the audio.
Science journalist and EP of Science Digital, Janelle Wiley. Hi, Janelle.
Hi, Jonathan.
Let's start with, I just want to know what kind of year you think it was in science news. It seems to me like we didn't have the one or two huge...
And people say no because I'm going to lose my parking.
Yeah, there's a considerable difference. But it's working, it sounds pretty clean. So there's a couple of things I can do. One is I can change the feedback resistors on the op amp there. I'm using 30k already. I don't want to push it too far, but I guess if I upped it to 40 maybe it would make enough difference. I'll see what I've got. If that doesn't work, then I can look at rejigging the 6 volt supply to the dial lamps, grounding one side of it and taking out that centre tapped resistor. I'm a little bit reluctant to do that. I don't know what unexpected consequences it might have, although as far as I can tell it should be fine. I can't think of a problem, but you never know. I'll start by changing those feedback resistors and see how much difference that makes. So what I'm going to try and do is lift one leg of the 30k resistor, put in a 10k in series with it, and just join them together, so hopefully that'll come out. It just needs a little bit more heat. There we go. This is not going to be pretty, but it's largely experimental at this point. So I put a 10k in there. There we go. Okay, so that's one side done. Alright, I'll try and do the other side. Alright, so I'll see what difference that makes. Alright, let's plug it in and see what happens. Okay, so it's warmed up and running.
The town of Grindavik had been evacuated before the eruption
and
no
Bluetooth
one is in danger.
And I heard a small noise there. Alright, so...
or a cloned, animal or a gene-edited human or anything like that. How did the year strike you overall? Obviously there was a lot of hype about AI, maybe too much hype
now
about AI.
Now going on to medium.
Bell, any thoughts on
Dino Primic. Primic impressed in his first ever Grand Slam, taking a set off the
every aspect of science, from health, diagnosing people with diseases.
There's still a fair bit of difference in volume, not an enormous amount. I suppose it would be all right. I don't know how much more feedback resistance this will take. So that's got 40k in it now. I might try 50, see how that goes. If not, we're going to have to mess with the 6 volt supply, and hopefully that will improve things. Anyway, late at night, I'm going to leave it for now. I've had a bit of a win now, at least it's working. I thought I'd just see what voltage that op amp is getting. So I've got it switched on now, nothing playing, but I'll just see what we're getting across it. Now we should have the that voltage from there to the pin in this back corner here. And we've got 5.9 volts. That's not anywhere near enough. I'll try switching the radio back on to medium wave. I'll just see what we're getting across the dial lamps, going on to AC volts here, and we should have about 6.3, I guess, 5.4 volts AC across the dial lamps. So the heater voltage itself is fairly low. I'm thinking that's possibly because our line voltage is a bit low, especially today. This is on I think a 240 volt tap. Our line voltage is 230. That'll account for some of it. I think what I might have to do is reference one side of that heater winding to ground, and I hope the radio will work just as well with it like that. Only one way to find out, I guess. So here we are. I've lifted that resistor off. I've left that end attached to ground. That won't matter. I've attached the hot side to this side of the winding. This side goes to ground here. Okay, here we go. I'm going to put it on dim bulb first, just to make sure it's alright. It's not lighting up full brightness, so I'm guessing that it is okay. The main consequence of what I've just done is possibly noise. Anyway, I'll go off dim bulb and just see what it sounds like.
Zero would tell you that they have a wonderful life, but actually
it's odd how it comes on suddenly like that. I don't know what's going on there.
face a struggle of some sort. Empathy for whatever anyone is going through, because it's very real to them. And something I often hear...
Okay, well I'll switch to Bluetooth. And the little blue LED is flashing. Let's just see what voltage I've got across that chip now.
No relation to Beethoven whatsoever.
Okay, well I've got the Bluetooth running and the volume level is pretty reasonable. I don't think it's quite as loud as the loudest stations on medium wave, but nevertheless it's within reason of it. But let's just have a look at the voltages now, and if I can keep my arm out of the shadow, we've got 12.9396. It varies a little bit, but that's a lot more like what I was hoping to see. And just for fun, I've wired a couple of blue LEDs in here to come on when the Bluetooth's on. The way the dial lights operate, we've got this side comes on medium wave, this side comes on short wave, and when you put it on Bluetooth it was just dead, nothing, no light at all. So I thought, oh, just to make it a little bit fancier, I'll put that on. And I've just put the LEDs into a little hole at the bottom underneath the lamp hole there. So I'll just plug it in and show you how it works. I haven't got the speaker plugged in, so I won't run it for long. So that's short wave side, medium wave and Bluetooth. It's only a sort of a glow rather than a bright light, but at least it's something. And it indicates what the radio's switched to, I guess, too. Well, I don't think I'm going to get it any better. I would like to get the audio level on the Bluetooth a little bit higher, but gee, it's pretty good. I've got 60k in the feedback resistor now, and I don't know if I want to change it again. It's pretty close. So I've taken the sides off it and I'm going to put this back in its cabinet. That's just fitted in quite well. I don't think I need to adjust anything really. That's quite good like that. Sometimes it's the simplest things that cause the most trouble, and I've just spent probably a couple of hours trying to sort out the grub screws on these knobs, and it's been a bit of a drama, I've got to say. I've had to tap out the holes. I made them M5 size and make up new grub screws, cut the little slots in the heads, whatever, fit them, fiddle with them, and I'm just hoping that this will now go on and stay on. The other knobs were similar, stripped threads on grub screws. This is a knob off some other radio. I drilled the centre out of it and fitted it with a piece of plastic hose that fits over the spindle. Pretty crude, but it works. So I guess we'll plug it in and just see how it sounds with the speaker in the cabinet. Let's hope nothing goes bang. I don't think I've ruined anything. There we go, that's off dim bulb. I'll just give it a sec to warm up.
Weather old. I'll get you now. Here we go, listeners. 5 for 91. So I'm going to let you tell you. 5 for 91 in the 13th over. Jake Weatherall was on 56 off 31. And the whole China is a threat. Now, he's striking 5 for 91 against the score. Or something. Well, then try back like a right-hander and flip it around and gets off stump, knocked out of the ground.
That's pretty good.
Still got 7 overs to go. If you
short Bluetooth, I'll have to hook something up to it.
Going.
Shortwave, we won't get anything yet because it's too early, but I'll see. You never know. Something maybe around 30 metres. Yeah, well, okay, so much for shortwave, at least it works. Okay, let's try it on Bluetooth then. Whoops, that way. I can't play too much of this. Yeah, well, I don't dare play any amount of music, but it does sound pretty good. Well, it's not very often I finish a project with a clean bench top, but there you go, it does happen occasionally. Normally I've got a big clean-up to do. This has been a longer series than I thought. I thought it was going to be 2 videos. It's turned out to be 3, and I'm struggling to squeeze it into 3. Mainly because of all the little fiddly bits that I had to work on, the speaker, the tuning mechanism, the switch mechanism. Electrically it wasn't all that difficult, and the addition of the Bluetooth board, and thanks Manuel for your brilliant little Bluetooth life support board. It works really well. I think it'd work underwater. Anyway, it's turned out to be a very nice radio. It looks great, it performs really well, it does what it's meant to do, and I hope the owner will be happy with it. So thanks for watching, and we'll catch you for the next project, which I think may be this little Grundig portable that I just picked up. I wouldn't mind having a go at that. It's a little bit outside of my normal range of things, but it seems interesting to me anyway. We'll see. Alright, thanks for watching. We'll catch you next time. Bye for now.